Mr. Ono asked me to make a video about parallel parking. There are probably thousands of different correct ways how to explain it, but what they all do have in common is that you need some practice, especially as a beginner. In this video I will explain you about the requirements of the German examiners, your rights while exam, and how to park reverse, and let's start. If it comes to parallel parking in your exam, it is always a big advantage knowing what the examiner is looking for. That's why we will talk about the 3 requirements of the examiner. The first one is your vision technique. While parking into your parking slot, you should pay especially attention to all potential threats around your car. How this is done, I will explain you a little bit later. The second point is after finishing the process, when you're parked. After parking, you should be parallel to the curb. That's why it's called parallel parking. And you should be not more far away from the curb than 30 centimeters. Inside your range, everything is possible. You can be much closer to the curb. You can even hit it, but you're not allowed to pass over the curb. So be careful that you're inside 30 centimeters and everything will be fine. If you fear parallel parking, you're probably not alone. But I've got very good news for you, because you've got several rights which makes the parking task much more easier. First about, your parking slot is quite big. It has to be at least 9 meters or more. Sometimes you don't have even an obstacle behind you. So it's just about to park behind of it. The examiner wants to see the correct movement, but he's not looking for a special tiny space to let you park in. That makes it definitely much more easier. The second thing which makes it more easy is that you're allowed to correct. If you didn't make it at the first attempt, you're allowed to drive forward and backwards or backwards and forward to get into the parking slot. You have 2 of these movements, so you can correct twice. If you are still not in the correct position after correcting twice, the exam is not lost. You're allowed to drive a second time to a totally different spot and try there again. So remember, if it doesn't work out in the first attempt, the examiner gives you a second try at another spot. It is much more easy than you think, and my students have never failed because of parking. So let's have a look how to park. If you're driving through the road and suddenly the examiner asks you, please park behind the red car, reverse. The first thing what you should do is indicating to the right. Why? Because if you indicate, another car will see it early and will stop here to give you the necessary space to drive backwards. Alright, after indicating right, you drive close to the car, mirror to mirror. Then you stop and turn into reverse. And the natural movement then is release this hand, put it there, look into the back mirrors and start driving reverse. That is wrong. In Germany, you have to keep both hands on the steering wheel and the main focus should be backwards. So turn your head. Why in this case you're not looking to the back mirror, which is much more comfortable? Because if you look into the back mirror, this might be the slot what you're about to see. If someone steps in, you can just see him if he's already behind you. If you turn your head, you can see a potential pedestrian much earlier and you manage to stop before he's behind your car. That's why please look backwards. Turn your head. You're allowed to use the back mirror, but the main focus is looking backwards. So keeping this in mind, you're driving backwards until your B pillar is at the end of this car. What's the B pillar? The B pillar is the separator of the front and back window. It is positioned close to the head of your driving teacher. If you reach this position, you have to stop. and look forward to see if there's some coming traffic. That's really important, because if you turn now the steering wheel to the right, that the wheels are turning right, your car is turning slightly to the left. So make sure it's free. You're here, you check forward. If it's free, you can start to merge into your parking slot. Let's start slowly to drive backwards until you think it's suitable. Until you think it's suitable? Come on, is there not a better formula to tell me where to stop? No, and I will tell you why. This angle is perfectly behind that car, but the angle might change. It can be a smart, it can be a huge van. In all situations, the angle is different. That's why you have to do it by feeling and stop. There is no other way. That needs training to get the correct feeling where to stop and start to turn the steering wheel left. And start to drive carefully backwards until you're parallel. In real life, you should now turn the steering wheel straight, drive a bit forward to stay in the middle of the parking slot. But in exam, it's a bit different. It's totally fine if you stay here and say, hey, I parked and everything is fine. If the examiner tells you you're right, you can go ahead, you have to put the indicator left and do Schulterblick before leaving out. That's really, really important. Don't forget that. Hopefully this video was helpful. In case you're thinking of a different situation, write it down in the comments and make it the topic of my next video. See you soon.